Should children be allowed one of these, a smartphone, in schools? Are they a useful tool for doing homework and keeping parents informed, or a distraction to learning? Well, whatever the views, the rules in schools vary depending on the policies which are set by individual head teachers. Many allow phones but insist they're switched off during the school day. Some only allow them if they're put in pouches, which mean they can't be used. But some are going even further. Several schools across our region are banning smartphones from being brought into schools altogether. Now, the exact figures are hard to establish because each head teacher makes their own decision. But in our region, it's estimated that about 50 schools already have or are planning to ban smartphones. But that's a small proportion of the total number of schools in the area, which is more than 3,000. Catherine Da Costa has been looking at the issue.
Remember these? The old brick phones. No internet, social media apps or cameras. The head teacher at Oxford Spires Academy says they're less addictive and much less of a distraction. So from September, these pupils will have to leave their smartphones at home.
I think students use their phones too much in school. I've seen people play games and communicate on social media during classes, and I think it's affecting their learning.
I understand why they did it, but it shocks me a little bit.
I think the ban will make a difference by giving us a safe space away from social media.
If you need to have a phone to communicate, you can have a basic phone on you.
In a school survey, 70% of parents said they were concerned about phone use, and 68% said they'd buy a brick phone if peers did the same. Head teacher Louise Cowley says a blanket ban on smartphones sends out a strong message.
We recognise that students' attention spans are becoming shorter. They are becoming disrupted by the need to want to check their phones, and that's impacting lessons and also how they're communicating and socialising with each other in school as well as out of school. So just bringing it in for Year 7 didn't feel right. It felt like it needed to be a whole school recognition for this piece of technology not being conducive to positive learning habits.
Researchers found that the average teen receives more than 200 phone notifications a day. They spend on average 35 hours a week on their smartphone, equivalent to a full-time job. And problematic smartphone use makes teens 3 times as likely to suffer from depression.
We'll get those locked away, thank you.
The government says schools can set their own phone restrictions to prevent disruption. 4 years ago, the Hurst School in North Hampshire was one of the first in the country to introduce magnetic pouches to lock phones away.
When I come into school knowing that the phone is locked away, it's just so much more relaxing. It's just knowing that you don't have that stress of a phone pinging in your lessons.
I think it does help locking it away at lessons and during break, just so nothing to distract me during lessons.
Well, certainly the behaviour of our students is much, much improved. Their focus in the classrooms, all behaviour incidents are down in terms of, the schools and suspensions, etc. Also, even 18 months later, our GCSE results went up by 2% against a backdrop of nationals coming down in that year.
But a recent study by the University of Birmingham found that school phone bans in isolation aren't enough to tackle the negative impacts of screen time and social media. A growing number of schools and parents are backing calls to delay giving children smartphones until 14.
You wouldn't hand your keys of your car over to a young person right now, but that doesn't mean we don't want them to drive in the future. It means that we set them up for success as they become young adults.
Next week, MPs are expected to debate the Safer Phones Bill, which calls for the digital age of consent to be raised to 16, as well as more research and guidance on the use of smartphones and social media. Catherine Da Costa, BBC South Today.
Well, it's a really good talking point. And a little earlier, I was joined here in the studio by Claire Fernyhuff, the co-founder of Smartphone Free Childhood. I began by asking how easy it's been to get schools on board with banning smartphones.
It's been easier than we expected, actually. What we found is once you get a critical mass of a few schools coming together saying, yeah, let's take collective action, then you get a lot more wanting to jump on board as well. I think the thing is that teachers and head teachers, they know there's a problem here because they're seeing it day to day. They're on the front line. So they know the problem. It's just really about how to implement the solution. But yeah, once you've presented the evidence, most of them are, generally very on board.
And where they're not on board, what's holding them back?
Often it's feeling like that there's a worry about parental backlash. So there's a fear that parents won't want this policy change. And, some parents don't. So there's that fear. I think there's also the fear of acting alone. It can feel very scary taking all of this on as a head yourself. So I think that can be an issue. But yeah, mainly it's those two issues. They generally really know that they need to do something. It's just knowing exactly how to implement the solution it can be really hard.
I mean, you mentioned backlash from parents there, but you're focusing on schools here. They're only in school for a finite amount of time. We all know as soon as they go home, a lot of them get on their phones. Shouldn't the emphasis be on parents?
Absolutely. And our movement, Smart for Free Childhood, is all about empowering parents to delay giving a smartphone to their children until at least 14. So we've got our Parent Pact, which helps parents come together and take collective action. But our view is actually it's both parents and schools that need to do their bit. So parents need to delay. But if parents delay and then all the kids go to school and then everyone's got a smartphone, that's not helping the parents. So schools need to do their bit as well and get rid of phones from the school day. And then when you see those two groups working together, that's when you see really radical change.
Do you find a bit of a contradiction? Because schools almost universally now are setting homework on devices. They're encouraging children to access screens all the time.
Absolutely, and I think we need to think really consciously about all the use of screens. We're not anti-technology at all, but we are pro-childhood, and we know that these devices are taking away from what all the children should be doing. Interacting in real life, learning to focus. So absolutely. But smartphones are the complete no-brainer. There is no place for a smartphone in school. They disrupt everything that we want to be happening, learning, focusing, interacting. So our first mission is to really get rid of the smartphones from schools, but absolutely we need to be thinking much more consciously about all technology in schools.
Where it is down to individual heads, that there's no universality. I mean, is it something you'd like to see the government act on and say, right, no phones in schools?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot to put on one head to say you need to change this societal norm, essentially, because that's what it is. This is not just schools' problem. It would be wonderful if government would issue much stronger guidance and really get behind schools and say, look, let's all do this together. Because at the moment, it's really down to parents going around and kind of canvassing and schools working together. And that's it's a slow change to do it like that. So yeah, I really think it would be great to have government support.
Claire Fernie-Huff from Smartphone Free Childhood, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.